Today we're going to be discussing malaria and more specifically the life cycle of malaria. Before we go on any further, let's quickly have a look at the absolute basics. The causative agent, what exactly is causing malaria? It's pretty well known that it's Plasmodium. And under Plasmodium, we have 5 species: Falciparum, Vivax, Ovale, Malaria, and Knowlesi. More commonly seen is Falciparum and Vivax, and so most discussion will be around these two. Now coming to the part of transmission, the Plasmodium is transmitted via a vector. Vector helps in the transmission of Plasmodium. And in this case, it's the female Anopheles mosquito that acts as a vector. The question now comes as to why only the female Anopheles mosquito. The reason is it's only the females that are required to suck blood, and they do so that they can produce their eggs. In the life cycle, the most important part are the hosts, and it is these hosts in which the pathogen lives. We've got 2 hosts for a Plasmodium. Some pathogens may require 1 host, or some may require more than 2. But in this case, we have only 2. One is the definitive host, and one is the intermediate host. The definitive host in this case is the female Anopheles mosquito, and the intermediate host is man. The definitive host is the one in which the sexual cycles occur, and the asexual cycles occur in the intermediate host. Now, if we look at the intermediate host, that is man, there's 3 stages that occur over here. Let's have a look at this stage for now, the erythrocytic schizogony. If we look at the name, it's pretty obvious that it occurs inside RBCs, erythrocytic, and schizogony denotes the fact that there is formation of schizogony. If there is schizogony occurring one stage previous to the fact that it comes into the RBC, then that would be called pre-erythrocytic schizogony. So in both cases, schizons are being formed. In one case, it happens before entering the RBCs, and in the next case, it occurs inside the RBC. The last and third cycle in the man is gametogony, which is again just the formation of gametocytes. Now, how exactly is the Plasmodium transmitted from mosquito to man? We saw that Plasmodium is the causative agent and mosquito is the vector. So the mosquito brings Plasmodium to man. So the thing is, Plasmodium exists inside the mosquito, more specifically in its salivary glands, which I'm assuming are somewhere around here, in the form of sporozoites, which is one of the forms in which the Plasmodium exists. And you can remember this by S for sporozoites and S for saliva. So this is where it is. And when the mosquito comes and, let's say, bites you or me, this is when these sporozoites get transferred into our blood. And remember that sporozoites are the infective form for man. Now, once the mosquito has bitten a person, these sporozoites that were inside its salivary glands enter our circulation. And it stays in our circulation for approximately 30 minutes. And soon after this, it reaches the liver. Now, when it reaches the liver, you have your sporozoite, which has to enter the hepatocyte of the liver. The sporozoite has something called a circumsporozoite protein that's present, and that is what helps it enter the hepatocyte. Now, once it's inside of the hepatocyte, I want you to remember these couple things. I want you to think of trophy, as in when you win a prize. So, trophy. And then after this, I want you to think of Szechuan fried rice. And it's a little peculiar because inside this fried rice, we've got some M&Ms, like the candy. So remember trophy and then Szechuan fried rice. And inside this fried rice, we've got M&Ms. So that's exactly what happens. The sporozoite that came from the saliva of mosquito now converts into a trophozoite. This trophozoite that comes from trophy, like just a way to remember, then you get a schizont. And inside the schizont, you have something called merozoites. So the merozoites are inside the schizont, exactly how the M&Ms are in the Szechuan fried rice. Now, in some species like your Plasmodium ovale and Plasmodium vivax, these stages don't necessarily occur immediately, but what happens is the sporozoite converts into a form called hypnozoites, which is basically like a sleeping cell kind of a thing, where it remains dormant for quite some time, and then it goes to the stages of trophozoite, schizont, and merozoite, and that is what causes the relapse of malaria in ovale and vivax. Now, if we have a look at the schizont over here, remember we said we had merozoites inside the schizont, so we have merozoites, and to this extent it's okay. But after some time, it increases, and at one point in time, it does not stay in the schizont anymore, but it gets released into the blood. So we can use the terms it bursts out of the hepatocyte. And now if it's in the blood, the next thing it goes and infects are your RBCs. Remember erythrocytic schizogony. So what happened in the liver was the pre-erythrocytic schizogony because we had a schizont formed, and that happened before it came to the RBC. In this case, we have erythrocytic schizogony, and as you can imagine, the exact same things that happened before in the liver are going to happen inside the erythrocyte. So in that case, it was the sporozoite that started things off, but in this case, it's the merozoite. And then remember, trophy, Szechuan noodles, M&Ms. So we go again, trophozoite, but in this case, it's divided into two parts. You've got your early trophozoite, and then you have your late trophozoite. Your early trophozoite is also called your ring form, reason being because of this nucleus kind of arrangement. And it appears as a ring, and it's diagnostically significant as well, and we'll cover up that in a later video. But for now, just know it's called the ring form. And then your late trophozoite becomes your immature schizont, and then eventually your mature schizont. And as we read before, schizont, inside the schizont, you have merozoites. So merozoites, they fill, and then rupture, and they are released again. Now, these merozoites are in the blood again. What do you think can happen? Exactly. In the blood, they infect new RBCs, RBC infected, and then they rupture again and then go infect another one. But another thing that can happen now is instead of going and infecting new RBCs, they can go and form something called gametocytes. This is the stage of gametogony. We had your pre-erythrocytic schizogony, then we had your erythrocytic schizogony, and now we have gametogony. In this case, we have the formation of microgamete and macrogamete. Microgamete quite obviously being the male gametocyte, and your female macro being the macrogametocyte. And these gametocytes are the infective form of the mosquito. In man, the infective form was sporozoite. For mosquitoes, the infective form is gametocyte. And with this, we come to the end of the stages in man, and now we'll move on to the mosquito. Let's say we have a mosquito, comes and bites a person that's already infected. Now these gametocytes, the macro and microgametocytes, get taken up with the mosquito, and the macrogametocyte gives rise to just one gamete, but the microgametocyte undergoes a process called exflagellation and gives rise to 8 gametes. Now if we take one female gamete and one male gamete and we combine them, we have fertilization and then the formation of zygote. Now this zygote is moving down the GIT of the mosquito, down, and we finally reach the midgut of the mosquito. Here in the midgut, we have the formation of eukinetes. See, a zygote is converted into something called eukinetes, and this is occurring in the midgut. Now, let's say it's in the gut, and this is your stomach over here. This is your stomach wall. As this eukinetes is passing by the stomach wall, like passing out through the stomach wall, it converts into something called an oocyst. So you had your zygote first. At the midgut, it becomes an eukinetes, and as it's passing out the stomach wall, it's converted into an oocyst. Now, this oocyst undergoes a stage called sporogony and gives rise to 4 sporozoites. Now, these 4 sporozoites are exactly what had infected man before. And once they get into man again, you have the whole cycle again and back to sporozoite again. And with that, we come to the end of malarial life cycle in both man and mosquito.